All right, greetings everyone. I want to greet you with lots of love, peace, and positivity. I hope you're doing well. I hope I didn't. Did that cut off? I hope that didn't cut off. Okay. I meant to adjust this camera because it looks. Let me see if I can do this real quick. Would that fix it? No. Oh, don't worry about it. Okay. All right. I want to talk about something that has taken place for me more recently when it comes to my own personal education. Okay. So, I've been working so much, and now I'm not working as much, but I've been working so much. And one of the things that I was trying to do as I was working was I was trying to educate myself. And the nature of my jobs, I only have one job now, but the nature of my two jobs at the time was it was manual labor, and I was in a position where I can take my Bluetooth audio speaker, and I usually would clip it like right here on my shirt like this, and then I would have my phone, and then I would play music, and that would kind of help me to get through things. But at a certain point, I don't even know how I got to that point. I started down. No, this is how it happened. I was downloading music, and I would listen to music, but then I started downloading audiobooks. So I started listening to audiobooks. I forgot all about that. And as I listened to these audiobooks, I happened to run across an audiobook by Dave Ramsey. Okay. And if you're not familiar with him, he's become very, very popular, and he gives advice to people about personal finance and investing and 401ks and Roth IRAs and all this kind of stuff. It's funny that I can run those things off like that now, whereas before I started listening to his podcast and listening to his audiobooks, those things were like really foreign. But I've gotten a better grasp about what they are and how they function and all this stuff and retirement plans. And it's really interesting. So what ended up happening was when I listened to his audiobook, I didn't know who he was. I was like, man, this is some interesting stuff. So I looked him up online. He has a podcast, and I started downloading podcasts. So basically what I was doing was, I was working 60 hours a week. Basically for those 60 hours, I would spend less time listening to music, which was educational to me because I'm a musician, and I was spending more time listening to these podcasts about personal finance and money and investing and these types of things. And at a certain point, it got to the point where I was listening to no music, and that's all I was doing. So now I'm doing basically 60 hours a week where I'm basically listening to and being educated about personal finance, being educated about money, being educated about credit, being educated about, home loans, being educated, about mortgages, 15-year versus 30-year, fixed versus right. Okay. So all this kind of thing. And it just, the more and more I got into it, the more and more I began to look at my situation a little bit differently, because here I am I'm working 60 hours, but I'm not really making a lot of money. One of the jobs I was making close to minimum wage, but I had to do what I had to do. But then also, as I began to learn and educate myself, I realized that, it doesn't have to be that way. And it starts with the mind in the first place. So what I want to talk about here is just a shift in consciousness. And the difference is, I think in the past, the shift in consciousness was about making more money. Right. It was just, because I've studied different things in the past that dealing with money. Now it was more like, but making more money so that we can survive. That was it. Whereas now it's not about that. It's really about earning more income so that I can invest more into my children's future, so that I can invest more into my business, so that I can earn more income through my business, so that I can invest more into the future, so that I can leave a legacy for my children that deals with personal finance and money, so forth and so on. It's a totally, it's a shift in consciousness all the way around, because I've moved from this sense of survival mode to this sense that, there is a way to strategize through education and to strategize about your own personal finance. And then also figuring out ways to generate more income, but also figuring out ways to educate yourself so that you can generate more income in the marketplace. Okay. So all these types of things, all these types of concepts, these are things that Dave Ramsey talks about, but he also has this like kind of like rough edge to him. So what happens is people call into his podcast, his show, and they'll tell him they'll tell him what their situation is financially, and then he'll have a little notepad and he's writing out numbers, and then he talks to them about, and sometimes it's more personal issues, but it's related to money. Sometimes it's just straight investment. So it's still personal, but not personal in terms of interacting with other people. It's more about, okay, well, where should I invest this money? And then he breaks it all down, and then he talks with them, and he gives them the advice. But as he does it, he's educating. I think that's the key point. And so what has happened is, for me, like, I thought my situation was so bad, but there's people who call into the show and their situation is so far worse. And they're making like 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 times the amount of money that I make. And yet their situation is far worse than mine. And so that's what I'm saying, like, the shift in consciousness, to really think about that. Like, how is it that there are people who are making, let's say, $300,000. There's people who call in and have $300,000. They make $300,000. That's their combined family income, but they're $600,000 in debt. How is that possible? And they've carried that debt, and it's credit card debt. It can be their mortgage, which Dave Ramsey doesn't mind so much as long as it's a 15-year fix. That's what he proposes. Sometimes it's a credit card debt. It could be car loans. It could be leases, that kind of stuff, on leasing cars. And then he'll break all that down, and he'll explain to people like, okay, what is the best strategy to begin to get out of debt? And debt, ultimately, your income is the best means to generate wealth in your life. But if you have debt, debt takes away from that, right? It's the opposite. Your income is one thing, your liabilities is something else, but debt is something totally different too, in the sense that it'll take away. It basically it siphons off over time. Interest rate, it siphons off over time your ability to generate wealth. So what was amazing to me is you have people who are making like $300,000, in some cases $400,000, but they got like $600,000 in debt. And then they're buying cars, they have a mortgage, they take out another, they may purchase another property, and they're paying on another mortgage, or, and it gets really, really crazy. So to hear people who are making that amount of money, who are in these bad situations, and I don't make a lot of money at all, right? Especially for having 5 children, okay? That's going to be changing, right? Because the education is the most important thing. It's about education and mindset, right? And the education changes the mindset. The shift in consciousness is what makes the difference. But you also have to educate yourself so that you can know what you need to do in order to strategize. So, and then there's people who call into the show, and they may be making like $60,000 a year combined, right? Family income, and they don't have any debt, and they're saving money, and they have an emergency fund, and they're saving for retirement, and they're funding their child's college fund. Does that make sense? Right? They're putting money into the child's college fund. So how is that possible? Right? So what I'm saying is that it's a mindset. It's not just about how much money you make. It's about the mindset that you have, and how you take care of that money, and how you invest that money, and what you do with that money. So as I listen to these stories, there's all types of stories. Some of these stories are like really tragic, but some of these stories are so inspirational, because in some cases we're talking about young people. There'd be like 23-year-olds or 25-year-olds that just got out of college, and combined income, and they're making like $150,000 or $170,000, and they don't have any debt. They own their cars, right? They don't have any debt outside of a mortgage. Maybe they're paying off their mortgage, right? But now, since they don't have the car loan to pay off, they have a certain amount of, or car loans to pay off. They have a certain amount of money that they just begin to dump into paying for, or just paying the mortgage off. They're putting in extra payments, and then by the time that they're 28, they actually own a home, or maybe 2 homes. I mean, it's really inspirational. Okay, so what I've been doing is I've been listening to these podcasts, and I've been it's been very educational. And then he also has resources online, and they have an app called the Every Dollar. What is it? Everyday Dollar, every dollar app, or something like that. That has been really, really good for me. Every Dollar. It's an app, and you can get a free version, which we have right now. But he also has online courses. We can't really afford that now, because one thing that's happened is, as I've been getting more deeper into his information, and then using the Every Dollar app, even how I use the money that we do have has totally changed. It's really, really incredible. So at this point, I don't feel that we're in a position to invest in his online course. But when the money is there, and it will be there very, very soon, that's going to be one of the most important things. And my wife and I were doing it together. That's the other thing I want to talk about before I close. I didn't mean for this video to be this long, but this is the other thing that I want to talk about, because what Dave Ramsey talks about is how husband and wife, you have to be on the same page about your finances. And he also talks about, like, a lot of people get divorced simply because of finances, because of all the arguing and fighting. And my wife and I, we don't understand it, because for us, we've never really had money. So it's never really been money to fight about, and we're in this together, and we've just been, we got 5 children. We don't have time to fight about money. We're thankful that we even have it, so that we can put food on the table. We can get the rent paid. We'll make sure the children, have what they need, that kind of thing. So Dave Ramsey, he talks about that one of the major issues when it comes to divorce is money, and people fighting, and all this type of thing. And he explains how you have to be on the same page if you're going to go down this path of educating yourself about personal finance, and you want to become debt free, because that's his whole thing, just becoming debt free. You got student loan, take care of that. You got credit cards, you got to take care of that. You knock it out. Do what you got to do to knock it out. If you got a mortgage, you want to knock that out, because ultimately your income is the best means to actually develop wealth. But you can't develop wealth while you have all of these high interest loans that are kind of holding you back and siphoning money off of you over time. It could be over 5 years, it could be over 10 years, in some cases people for 20 years, 30, in some cases people for 50 years, right? So it's important that it's been very important for me, and I've been encouraging my wife to come on board, and she's actually been coming on board. We do our budgets together at the beginning of each month. I'm trying to get her to actually start listening to the podcast every single day, because he has one, I think, Monday through Friday, but there's older ones that I download and I listen to those too. I listen to as much as I can, whenever I can. And then the other thing too is we today I finished the taxes today. So we filed jointly, and my wife, she basically to finalize things. Her and I, we worked together, and even doing that and doing it early, right? And actually I would have done it sooner, but I was waiting on documentation like W-2 forms, and they didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't come at the time that they normally come. But this time they came. This time they came a little bit later, so I was waiting on that documentation. And once it came, I got right on into it, and I finished it today. And then my wife and I, and then afterwards, we were talking about the refund. Like, okay, well, what are we going to do with this money? We never had those types of conversations. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just a total shift of conscience. Like, what are we going to do? What are we going to invest this in? And the idea is we want to put it towards not just getting things. That's not it anymore. It's about, okay, what do we need to do in order to invest this so that we can generate more income? Do we invest it in our own personal business? Her website, aidahonor.com, my website, leonardhonor.com. What do we do with this money? I mean, and so this is what I'm saying. It's a total shift of consciousness, and it's already changed things in me. And my goal as a husband and father is to continue with this educational process so that I can be a better service to my wife and to my children financially. So last thing, I just want to encourage you all. And some of you guys, I mean, it may not even be an issue for you financially, but education is so very important. I would just want to encourage you all, if you have not listened to Dave Ramsey. He can be a little coarse sometimes, but I think there's a strategy to that, because a lot of people get stuck in their ways when it comes to the money. And if their behavior when it comes to money is actually a detriment to them, he'll let them know in no uncertain terms. But even still, I just want to encourage you all to check out one of his podcasts. I don't really recommend people all that often, but it made a huge difference in my life already. And if it can help you, and even deeper still, if it can help you and your wife, or you and your husband, it can help you and your children. Please, listen and get as much information as you possibly can. There's something else I want to say real quick. The other thing too is because I listen to it like right here, and I'm playing in it in my work environment, at least at my day job, is loud. My night job, I don't have a night job anymore, but that was a lot quieter. But the day job, I have to play this, the audio really, really loud. Like, it has to be really loud just so I can hear it. And so I can be walking around while I'm working, and people can hear it. And I can't tell you how many people stopped me and said, "Are you listening to Dave Ramsey?" I said, "Yeah." And then we start having these conversations, and they start telling me about what their situation is financially. And then I start, and I don't usually say too much about, because I'm more new to this, but they start talking to like what their objectives are and what they plan on doing and their plans for the future when it comes to wealth building. And when I say wealth building, I'm not talking about, simply to be able to make a whole lot of money. But what I'm saying is to get to the point where whatever amount of money you're making strategic and intelligent decisions about where that money is going and how that money is going to work for you, and what you're going to be spending that money on, or what you're going to be saving that money for. Wow. You can tell I've been listening a lot, because it just rolls off my tongue so easily. Right. Yesterday I was at Sprouts at the store getting stuff was that yesterday or the day before? Getting stuff for my son's birthday party. That was the day before. I can't even remember. It might've been yesterday before the birthday. No, that was Friday. And I went to Sprouts to go get some stuff, and I was listening while I'm in Sprouts, and I'm shopping. And after I get done shopping, I'm at the checkout line, and the checkout lady, she's really nice. She was like, "You're listening to Dave Ramsey, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm listening." And we started laughing, and she started talking to me about him. I said, "Yeah, I've been listening a lot, as much as I can, and it's changed things for me." She says, "That's really, really good." So it's helped me tremendously already. And my education continues. And I just want to encourage you all to, whatever level of understanding that you have about personal finance, that's great. It may be light years ahead of me, but at the very least, go check out Dave Ramsey and see if there's anything else that he can contribute to your education, because it has made a huge impact on me already. All right, that's it. I'm sorry for going off on this particular time. You can tell I'm really into this. Okay. All right. Thank y'all so very. Oh, one last thing. The other thing too is I purchased these books for my children. I think I did a video about this before, but I purchased these books, How Money Works. And what we do as a family is we sit down before people go to bed and we actually read through that. And everyone reads, like all of our children, all 5 of our children. My wife reads, I read, and we ask questions and we talk about the different things. And it just talks about money. Right now, we're in the earlier parts of the book, and it's just talking about the creation of money and the different types of currency that have existed over time. Cowrie shells and how people used to barter and that kind of stuff. So we're having these conversations. And the idea is we want to give our children the type of information and education about money and personal finance now so that they can be placed in a position later on in life to be much more successful financially than we have been, my wife and I. And I think that that's really what this is all about. That's what this is really all about. Okay. And I want that for all of y'all. You know, I want that. I want it for your children too. Okay. And your grandchildren. All right. I'll leave it at that. All right. I want to see y'all lots of love, peace, and positivity. I'll talk to y'all soon. Take care. Peace.